If I'd known my own son would steal my bedroom while I was lying in a hospital bed, I would have checked myself out early. That's the thought that hit me the second I stepped through the front door, because the air felt wrong. Too clean. Too staged. Like a hotel lobby trying to be welcoming but failing miserably. I didn't even get to close the door before Evan said, "Hey Mom, don't worry about comfort. People your age can sleep just about anywhere." Right there. Sentence 1. A soft slap covered by fake concern. I only spent 2 nights in the hospital. 2. And it wasn't even dramatic. Just one of those, let's keep an eye on your heart, visits doctors recommend because they don't want to say, "You're old and it scares us." But all the way home, I dreamed about sinking into my old mattress. Tom bought it for me 28 years ago. Said a woman who works as hard as I do deserves a bed that fights for her, not against her. So when I got down the hall and opened my bedroom door, I don't know if I gasped or stopped breathing completely, because the room was empty. Not organized. Not rearranged. Emptied. My bed? Gone. My nightstands? Gone. My dresser? Gone. Even the tiny crocheted throw blanket I made during Tom's final winter. Gone like it meant nothing. What was left? A pale rectangle on the carpet where my bed once sat. Like a chalk outline at a crime scene. Behind me I heard the telltale click of Brianna's heels. She always sounded like a warning sign hitting tile. "We needed more space," she said. "Your room wasn't being used the right way." My room. Not being used. The only space that was still mine since they'd temporarily moved in 3 years ago. Where are my things? I asked, too calm to be truly calm. "Oh," she said, waving a hand. "Most of them? Sold. It helped cover the updates we want to make around here." Updates. My stomach tilted like an elevator with frayed cables. Evan finally looked at me. Briefly. Like checking if a stove is hot before pulling his hand away. "Mom, soft mattresses are terrible for your back. You're better off on a firmer surface. We're simplifying your life." Simplifying. The word people use when they're stripping away parts of your existence they think you're too old to notice missing. I didn't argue. Didn't cry. Didn't beg. I just stood there in the ruins of my bedroom, feeling something in me click into place. Something I hadn't felt since Tom died. A warning. A promise. A door opening in the wrong direction. Because if they thought an empty bedroom was the worst thing they could take from me, they were about to learn what happens when a woman like me decides she's done being erased. I knew they were lying the moment Evan wouldn't look me in the eye. My son's always been a terrible liar. His ears turn red, his voice softens, and he suddenly finds the ceiling fascinating. And right then, standing in my doorway, he looked everywhere except at me. "I don't understand," I said. "You sold my things without asking?" Before Evan could stutter out an excuse, Brianna jumped in front of him. Like a PR rep cleaning up a scandal. "That older furniture just isn't safe for you anymore," she said, giving me that sugary smile she uses when she thinks I'm too old to understand English. "You should be thanking us." Honestly, that room was depressing. Depressing. My room. The one space in the entire house where I kept pieces of my life safe. My quilt, my old cedar chest, the chair Tom used to rock in while reading our mail out loud just to hear himself talk. Depressing. "I sleep there," I said, voice low. "Or I did." "Well," Evan said, clearing his throat, "we set up the guest sofa for you. It's firmer, better for your posture, and cheaper for you." I finished for him. That got his attention. His ears turned bright red. He opened his mouth, closed it again, then tried a completely different tactic, guilt. "Mom, we're trying our best to keep this house running. You know things have been tight. We all have to pitch in." Pitch in. That phrase had teeth. Because I'd been pitching in for years, quietly, steadily paying utilities, just this once, covering unexpected bills, letting them stay for a few weeks, that turned into 3 years. But selling my furniture while I was hooked up to a hospital monitor? That wasn't pitching in. That was crossing a line I hadn't known I still had. I walked into the guest room, and sure enough, they'd set up the stiff little sofa with a scratchy blanket folded on top. The kind of furniture that begs you not to stay long. "You'll adjust," Brianna said from the doorway. "People your age adapt easily." People your age. as if age were a disease she'd diagnosed me with. I sat down anyway. The cushion barely held me. My hips ached instantly. My pride, even more. Evan hovered behind her, shifting nervously. Mom, don't overthink this. It's just a room. No. It was the moment I realized they didn't see me as the woman who raised him. They saw me as a burden they could rearrange. And something inside me, something I thought had died with Tom, snapped awake like a guard dog that had been sleeping by the door. Because that night, on that miserable little sofa, I made a decision, quiet, sharp, and irreversible. And once I made it, there was no going back for any of us. I didn't plan on waking up angry. I planned on waking up sore. And trust me, the soreness came first. My back screamed. My neck felt like someone swapped my spine for rebar. And that damn guest sofa felt like it was stuffed with bricks instead of cushions. But once the physical ache settled, the anger rolled in, slow, hot, and steady. Not the kind that explodes. The kind that builds. The kind that fuels decisions. I pushed the scratchy blanket off me and sat up. The whole house was still dark, early enough that even the birds hadn't started yelling outside. I could hear Evan and Brianna down the hall. Two soft voices behind a closed door, whispering like kids plotting a surprise party. Except the only surprise around here was the one coming for them. I walked quietly to my old room. The door creaked when I pushed it open, and the emptiness inside hit me like a physical slap. The moonlight showing that square patch of untouched carpet felt like standing over a gravestone of something that used to matter. My fingers brushed the wall where my headboard used to rest. It was cold. Cold in a way that said, they really did this. That's when I noticed a small scuff mark on the floor, right where Tom's rocking chair used to sit. The chair they'd apparently gotten rid of. No warning. No conversación. Gone. You don't discard a man's memory like that. Not on my watch. I knelt down, not gracefully, not quickly, but determined, and ran my hand over that scuff like I was touching a ghost. And for a moment, I felt something I hadn't let myself feel in years. Tom's steadiness. His quiet confidence. The way he always said, never give away more of yourself than you can afford to lose. Well, I'd given away plenty. More than enough. I stood up, hand on the window frame for balance, and realized something simple but sharp. They didn't think I'd fight back because they forgot who raised them, who built this house, who held this family together while they pretended to be struggling. They forgot I'm not fragile. In the kitchen, I brewed a cup of tea. The kettle wheezed. Someone had replaced the lid, and that alone irritated me more than it should have. Everything that was mine had been swapped, updated, or tossed. Not anymore. I grabbed my old notebook from the drawer, the one where I kept passwords, bills, account notes, and flipped through the pages. And that's when I saw it. The transfers. The automatic withdrawals. The little siphons I'd agreed to for now. $350 here. $280 there. Health supplements I didn't use. Premium subscriptions I never signed up for. Hundreds a month. And it all hit me at once. They weren't simplifying my life. They were streamlining theirs, using my wallet and stripping my home to do it. I closed the notebook with a soft thud. Not angry. Not afraid. Just awake. Wide awake. Because the next morning, I didn't confront them. I did something far worse. I made my first move, quiet, calculated, and impossible for them to undo. The moment I realized they were draining my bank account, I didn't raise my voice. I reached for my phone. Not to call Evan. Not to call Brianna. But to call the one person who never sugarcoated anything. My bank manager, Sandra. I hadn't dialed her number in years. But the second she answered, bright, professional, awake before any sane human should be awake, I felt myself straighten up like I was 30 years younger. Mrs. Harris. Is everything okay? Yes, honey, I said. But I have a situation with my accounts. The word situation did a lot of heavy lifting. I'd like to suspend all automatic transfers. Every single one. There was a pause, a surprised one. All of them. Yes, I said. Today. While she clicked away on her keyboard, I looked around the kitchen. The new salt and pepper shakers I didn't buy. The fancy blender Brianna ordered with my card. The plants I never planted in the window. My house had my name on the deed. but their fingerprints were everywhere. Finally, Sandra said, "Done. Nothing will go out today. If anything tries to process, it'll be blocked." "Thank you," I said and meant it. When I hung up the phone, I felt something I hadn't felt in far too long. Control. Quiet, sharp, delicious control. And I didn't tell them a damn thing. Around 8, Evan shuffled into the kitchen, hair sticking up, shirt wrinkled, looking like a kid asking for breakfast money even though he was nearly 40. "Morning, Mom," he said, opening the fridge like he owned it. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said, sipping my tea. Something in my tone made him glance over. Not long, just a flick, but enough for him to sense a shift. A change in the air. But he didn't ask. He never asked. A few minutes later, Brianna breezed in, phone glued to her hand, lip gloss shimmering at 8 in the morning because she always performed put together, even when her life was falling apart. Could you pick up a few things from the store?" she asked. "We're planning a little get-together this weekend." My eyebrows twitched. "A get-together?" "Yes," she said cheerfully. "Some friends. We want the place to look good." "The place? Not my home. Their backdrop." "No," I said simply. She blinked. "No. No." She let out a laugh. Not amused, not confused, but the kind of laugh people use when they think you're joking in poor taste. "Well, we really need groceries." "Then you should go," I said. Evan looked up sharply. There it was again, that flicker of recognition. He could feel me shifting, even if he couldn't name it yet. I didn't give him a chance to ask. I set my mug down, slid my notebook into my purse, grabbed my coat, and walked out the front door. I didn't owe them explanations. Not anymore. I only owed myself action. I walked 4 blocks, slow but determined, to the small law office sandwiched between the library and the pharmacy. The door chimed when I stepped inside, and the receptionist, a young woman with kind eyes and a tired smile, straightened. "Good morning. How can we help you?" "I need to speak with someone about property rights," I said. "Preferably someone who knows what happens when house guests forget their guests." Her eyebrows lifted just slightly. She understood. 10 minutes later, I sat in a quiet office across from an attorney named James Holloway. Calm voice, steady posture, and the kind of face that had seen families tear each other apart more times than he cared to admit. "What can I do for you, Mrs. Harris?" I folded my hands. My voice didn't shake. "Not once. My son and his wife live in my home. They've begun making decisions without my consent. Financial. Personal. They sold my belongings while I was in the hospital." His expression didn't change, but his eyes did. Softened. Focused. Concern sharpened into professionalism. "Mrs. Harris," he said, "you have more power here than you think." Oh, I knew. For the first time in a long time, I knew. Because that day, sitting across from that attorney, I didn't just learn my rights. I learned exactly how to take my house back. And Evan and Brianna had no idea the countdown had already begun. The moment Attorney Holloway told me they were legally just occupants, I swear the whole room snapped into focus. Not tenants. Not co-owners. Not partners. Just occupants. And suddenly, everything they'd done, selling my furniture, dipping into my money, rearranging my life like I was in a used closet, they all made a different kind of sense. They acted like owners because I let them feel like owners. That ended today. Holloway slid a document across the desk. "This is a notice to vacate. 30 days. Completely within your rights as the sole homeowner." I stared at the paper. Not with fear. With clarity. The kind of clarity that hits like a cold bucket of water. "Will this hold up if they refuse to leave?" I asked. "It won't matter if they refuse," he said, voice firm. "You own the property outright. They have no claim, no lease, no contribution to taxes or maintenance. Legally, Mrs. Harris, you hold every card. Every card. Let me tell you, at 76, you don't hear that phrase often." He continued, "I'll draft the official documents. You'll only need to deliver them. No confrontation necessary." No confrontación. Funny. I'd been avoiding confrontation for 3 years. And look where it landed me, sleeping on a couch while my daughter-in-law redecorated my home using my credit card. Is het straight. And after they leave? That, he said, smiling slightly, is finally up to you. I left the office with a thick envelope tucked under my arm. The papers weren't heavy, but holding them felt like carrying my spine back home. Walking those 4 blocks again, I had a strange sense of calm. Not the kind you get after a nap or a warm meal. This was deeper. Rooted. It felt like remembering who I used to be before life softened me into someone too polite for her own good. When I stepped back into the house, everything felt different, yet exactly the same. That's how you know a storm's coming. The quiet doesn't change, you do. Evan was in the living room pretending to work. Papers spread everywhere like a display. Brianna was fluffing pillows she bought with my money. Neither of them looked up when I entered. Of course they didn't. They hadn't looked up in years. I walked past them without a sound and slipped the legal envelope into my writing desk. The one piece of furniture they hadn't dared touch. Not yet. For the rest of the afternoon, I kept to myself. I cooked a small lunch, watered my plants, opened windows to let real air in. Every small act reminded me, this is my home. Not theirs. Not shared. Mine. Evan finally poked his head into the kitchen late in the day. Hey Mom, you okay? You left kinda suddenly this morning. I had some things to take care of, I said simply. Oh, he replied, waiting for more. He didn't get more. And the look on his face? That tiny flicker of uncertainty? That was the first sign that the balance was shifting. He felt it. He just didn't know why yet. That night, after they went to bed, I walked through the house slowly. I touched the banister Tom sanded. The window frame we painted together one summer. The front door he always insisted needed just one more coat, even though it didn't. Everything he built, everything we built, I had let it slip from my hands. But now? Oh, now I was gripping it again. Firmly. Because the very next day, I was going to hand Evan and Brianna the papers that would change their whole world. And I wasn't going to apologize for a single word written on them. If you've never handed your own child an eviction notice, let me tell you. There's a calm that comes right before it, like the air right before a tornado touches down. That's exactly how the morning felt. Still. Too still. Like the house was holding its breath with me. I woke before sunrise again, not from discomfort this time, but from purpose. I brewed my coffee, buttered a piece of toast, and sat at the kitchen table with the envelope in front of me like it was a loaded weapon. And honestly, it was. Around 8:30, I heard movement upstairs. Evan's heavy footsteps, Brianna's lighter, quicker ones. I could tell who was irritated by how hard she slammed the closet door. She must have found out a package didn't arrive, or maybe the world simply hadn't applauded her existence yet. Either way, I didn't care. I laid the envelope neatly in the center of the table, right where they'd have to face it. Evan came down first, yawning like a man who'd slept peacefully in a bed he didn't pay for. Morning, Mom, he mumbled, heading straight for the fridge. Morning, I said, steady. He froze halfway through grabbing the orange juice. His instincts were sharper than Brianna's. He could feel tension even through walls. What's that? He asked, nodding toward the envelope. I didn't answer. I pushed it toward him. He set the juice down, hesitated, then picked up the envelope like it might burn him. Brianna walked in just as he started opening it. What's going on? Her voice cut off as she saw the legal header at the top of the document. Her face changed instantly. That's the thing about Brianna. She's quick when something affects her directly. Suddenly, the room wasn't our shared space anymore. Suddenly, it was mine again. What is this? She snapped. Evan was reading silently, his lips moving a little, like the words were too heavy for his brain to process all at once. Finally, he looked up. Mom, what is this supposed to mean? It means, I said, folding my hands calmly, you have 30 days to find another place to live. Both of you. Brianna scoffed so loudly it bordered on a bark. You can't just throw us out. I can, I said, and I am. We're family, she snapped. Then you should have acted like it. She opened her mouth, probably to deliver one of her backhanded, passive-aggressive lines. But Evan beat her to it. Mom, we've been helping you. No, I said sharply, my tone slicing through his sentence. You've been helping yourselves. You sold my things. You spent my money. You stripped my home of everything personal and called it simplifying. No more. Evan swallowed hard. We didn't mean harm. You meant convenience, I corrected him. And convenience is not the same as care. Silence dropped into the room like a stone sinking into deep water. Brianna shot Evan a look, angry, desperate, and embarrassed all at once. Say something. He didn't. For the first time in years, he actually seemed unsure. Good. He needed to feel that. We have 30 days, I said, pushing my chair back. But if you'd like to leave sooner, that would be fine with me. I went to stand but then paused, watching the two of them stare at the paper that was about to change their lives. The same way they changed mine without a second thought. Because the next thing they did, right after reading that notice, didn't surprise me. But what I did in response. That shocked everyone, including me. The second they realized the eviction was real, they didn't get quiet. They got strategic. And not the smart kind of strategic. The desperate, sloppy, cornered animal kind. I'd barely walked out of the kitchen when I heard Brianna's voice explode behind me. We're not leaving. Not after everything we've done for her. Done for me. That line almost made me laugh. I leaned against the hallway wall, listening. Not hiding. Just waiting to hear their next move. Evan's voice came next, low, shaky. Bree, she owns this house. Legally. Well, legally, she snapped, she's old. She's confused. We can challenge it. We can say she's not fit to make decisions. I froze. My heart didn't flutter. No, this time it hit like a hammer. Challenge my decision-making? Try to paint me as mentally unfit? That wasn't just betrayal. That was war. Before I could step back into the kitchen, I heard Evan whisper, "We can't do that to her." Oh really? Brianna shot back. She's doing this to us. This is our future. Our stability. She can't just throw us out. She needs us. Wrong. I needed them like I needed a hole in my roof. I stepped around the corner, letting my shadow fall across the tile before my feet did. You really want to try to claim I'm incompetent, Brianna? Her face drained of color so fast I almost felt bad. Almost. That's not what I. It's exactly what you said. She straightened her posture the way insecure people do before pretending they're confident. Well, we have rights. You have 30 days, I corrected. Evan rubbed his forehead. Mom, can we please talk without all this hostility? Maybe we can compromise. No, I said plainly. There is no compromise. I'm done being taken advantage of. Brianna crossed her arms. You can't live alone. You'll need help. Oh, sweetheart, I said, stepping closer, lowering my voice just enough to make her lean back. Needing help is one thing. Letting people treat me like a piece of old furniture they can move around is another. I walked past them both, headed to my bedroom, the empty one, and stood in the doorway for a moment. Not sad. Not emotional. Just tired of the constant disrespect. Behind me, their whispers started again. She's bluffing, Brianna hissed. No, Evan whispered, she's not. He was right. But they weren't ready to accept that yet. By noon, they had shifted tactics again. This time pretending to be sweet. Evan brought me tea. Brianna offered to redecorate the guest space for me. It was all theater and bad theater at that. I accepted nothing. Smiled at nothing. Gave nothing. The only thing I did was go to my desk, pull out my notebook, and calmly start writing a list titled, What I Take Back Next. It felt good. Better than good. Powerful. Late that night, I heard them whispering again in their room. Voices tight, rushed, panicked. She won't change her mind, Evan said. She will, Brianna hissed. We just have to push harder. Push harder. Those two words were all I needed to hear. Because the next morning, when they tried exactly that, I didn't break. I broke them. They thought handing me tea and fake smiles would soften me. But the move they tried next? That's when I stopped playing defense, and finally went on the attack. I knew they were planning something the moment the house went too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, suspicious quiet, the kind that tells you someone's holding their breath, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Sure enough, around 10 in the morning, Evan and Brianna came marching into the living room like they were staging an intervention. Evan cleared his throat. Brianna crossed her arms. The whole setup looked rehearsed badly. Mom, Evan began, We need to talk. No, Brianna said, jumping in. She needs to listen. I almost laughed. Almost. I folded my hands in my lap and said, all right, I'm listening. Brianna lifted her chin. That was her signal. Her way of pressing the imaginary microphone to her lips. We talked to someone, she announced. A professional. Ah, I said softly. Here we go. She continued. We explained what's been going on. Your erratic decisions. Your impulsive behavior. Your emotional instability. Ist hier. Dead still. Expression neutral. And, she added proudly, they agreed that your mental state is concerning. They said it would be easy to file for temporary guardianship. For your safety. For my safety. The woman who stole my bedroom while I was in the hospital had the audacity to say she was protecting me. Evan stepped forward, trying to soften the blow. Mom, we're not trying to hurt you. We're trying to make sure you're taken care of. You mean taken over, I corrected. He winced. Brianna kept going, undeterred. If you withdraw the eviction and let us remain here, we won't have to pursue this legally. Ah, there it was. The real game. Threaten my independence to keep their free ride. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't stand up. Didn't shake. I simply said, I spoke to an attorney yesterday. The color drained from Brianna's face like someone had pulled a plug. And unlike your professional, I continued, mine actually knows the law. Evan swallowed. Mom, sit, I said. He sat. I looked Brianna dead in the eye. You can't challenge my competency without evidence. You can't file for guardianship without grounds. And you can't manipulate me into backing down. Her jaw clenched. You sold my belongings. Used my money. Disrespected my space. And now that the consequences have arrived, you're scrambling. This isn't scrambling, she snapped. This is protecting our future. Your future, I corrected. Never mine. She opened her mouth again, but I didn't let her speak. Try it, I said. Go ahead. Make your little claim. You'll find out just how mentally sharp I am when your guardianship attempt backfires in court. Evan shifted nervously. Bree, maybe we should. No, she barked. She can't do this. I already did, I said calmly. The paperwork is filed. You have 29 days left. Silence. Thick as fog. Sharp as broken glass. I stood not because I was angry, but because I was done giving them altitude over me. You tried threats, I said. Now you can try packing. I walked past them, heading toward the hallway, when Brianna muttered, she can't really do this, right? Evan didn't answer. He didn't need to. He knew. I heard him whisper, voice barely audible. She can. And she will. But the real twist? They weren't the only ones planning a move. Because while they scrambled to keep their grip on my house, I was preparing something they never saw coming. If you want to know the exact moment you win a battle, it's when your enemy realizes the fight was never on their side of the chessboard. That moment came the day after their guardianship threat, when both of them finally understood they weren't going to scare me, bully me, or wear me down. They tried silence first. Cold shoulders. Fake politeness. Moving around the house like ghosts trying not to wake the living. But see, I'd already woken up. That morning, I stood outside on the porch with a cup of coffee and a folder under my arm. The sky was bright, loud birds screeching like they were cheering me on. I'd been waiting for the right moment. And then it came. A car pulled into the driveway. Dark blue sedan. Professional. Official. Evan stepped outside just in time to see the man getting out. A polite older gentleman with paperwork tucked neatly under his arm. Who's that? Evan asked, voice thin. Your replacement, I said. The man approached with a smile. Mrs. Harris? Ready for the assessment. Evan blinked fast. Assessment? What assessment? I turned to him, calm as the sunrise. Since you and your wife seem worried about my mental state, I scheduled a full cognitive evaluation. From a licensed geriatric specialist. Brianna stepped onto the porch just then, face pale. You can't do that. I already did, I said. Today we're officially proving I am fully competent. And once that report is filed, any attempt you make to claim otherwise will look fraudulent. The specialist glanced at Evan. You must be her son. Evan looked like a balloon losing air. I just didn't know she scheduled this. I schedule plenty, I said sweetly. You just never noticed. An hour later, after memory tests, problem-solving tasks, verbal reasoning, and a bunch of other mental gymnastics I hadn't done since college, the specialist closed his folder. Mrs. Harris, he said, smiling, your cognitive function is excellent. Sharp as a tack. He looked at Evan. There is absolutely no sign of impairment. Brianna's face tightened so hard it practically folded. I signed the final page, and the man collected his things. Before leaving, he said, I'll have this filed with the county by tomorrow. Everything will be documented. Perfect, I said. When the door shut behind him, the silence was electric. I walked into the living room, stood in front of them, and said a sentence they would remember for the rest of their lives. You have 28 days. I suggest you start packing. Brianna finally cracked. You're ruining our lives. No, I said softly. I'm rebuilding mine. Evan sank onto the sofa, the one they'd planned for me, and put his head in his hands. I saw the guilt finally land. Heavy. Real. But here's the thing. Guilt doesn't erase damage. It only explains it. And I wasn't here for explanations anymore. Over the next week, the house transformed. Not physically, emotionally. They were quieter, politer, nervous. But not because they'd changed. Because they'd been caught. And through it all, I moved with purpose, reclaiming drawers, rearranging rooms, buying back pieces of myself one item at a time. The house started feeling like mine again. My air. My walls. My story. When the final day came, they loaded their last box into the car. Evan hugged me tight, sad, apologetic, defeated. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered. I hope you mean that. I whispered back. Because sorry without change is just noise. Brianna couldn't even look at me. That was fine. They drove off slowly, and for the first time in 3 years, my driveway was empty. Quiet. Peaceful. I stepped back inside, shut the door, turned the lock, and let out a breath I'd been holding for far too long. This was my house again. My life again. My peace again. And I didn't lose myself to get it back. I found myself. If you like my story, please like, subscribe, and comment.